Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to clean out a Tecumseh Snowblower carburetor on a 5 horsepower engine specifically, but this will also work for the 8 horsepower engine. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So the first step we're going to have to do is take off the first step you're going to have to do is remove the carburetor cover. So in the 5 horsepower engine, I already took it off, but there is a 5/16 screw up here that you have to loosen, and there's going to be 2 Phillips screws at the sides here that you're going to have to take out, and you're going to have to remove the little knob here to take it off. So after you've done that, you're going to have to disconnect the fuel line from the carburetor. So if you watch my last video, or whatever order this comes out in, I just replaced the fuel line. So to do that, I'm just going to pull it off with my fingers and use a screwdriver to kind of pry it off of there, and there we go. Next thing we're going to have to do is take out the 2 7/16 bolts right there holding on the carburetor, and there's a primer line here that you're just going to pull off like this with your finger, and if it breaks off, don't worry about that because it's not, and you can just replace it. So there we go. Next, so now what we're going to do is take off the 2 7/16 bolts or nuts right there and right there. So to remove the nuts, I'm going to use one of these ratcheting wrenches. You don't have to use one of these. I just like it because it's a little bit faster. Oh, and one thing, when you're removing this nut, you might have to hold the throttle with your finger this way, or else the wrench will hit the little end right here. Okay, so after you get both nuts out, what you're going to do is you're going to pull this carburetor out like this way and twist like this to get the linkage out of here. And you're going to want to remember which hole this goes in. So if you're doing this alone, you might want to get a screwdriver, someone can make a mark around the hole. Like right there. So it's the middle hole between the two for me. It may do for a few. Anyway, so just twist this like this a little bit, and the carburetor should come out. The next thing we're gonna do, let me zoom this out for sorry, is we're gonna spray it off with some brake cleaner, and then we're gonna open it up and spray out all the jets. Alright, so the next step is we're gonna remove a little nut here on the bottom that holds the bowl on. So loosen it with your 7/16 ratchet, and then you can loosen it like this. Yeah, I might need a ratchet still. You may take this out and then take the bowl off. Okay, so I'm still loosening the nut here, and there we go. Now we're gonna pop off the bowl. And ooh yeah, look at that, nice and green colored. So we're gonna put that in our little parts as well. Next, we're gonna remove the float. So for that, get a little pair of pliers, or big plier, doesn't really matter. Get a pair of pliers and pull out the little pin here. And make sure you have a little bowl like this to put all your parts in, because you don't want to lose any. Next, take the float, lift it out like this, and the needle will come out with it. Make sure to put that in here too. Dump out the old gas out there. Next thing I'm going to do is just spray off the whole thing with some brake cleaner before we take it inside and like wire brush it and clean it up. Okay, so you're also going to want to spray out things like the bowl here. So get your carb cleaner and just spray it like this. So do this until it's clean. And definitely spray with the jet here. So make sure you get all little holes cleaned out with the spray first, and then after we go inside, we'll clean it with the wire brush. Okay guys, so I've got the carburetor on my workbench now. And what we're going to do now is install a new carburetor kit, and we're just going to clean up the whole thing in general. So here's the kit that I bought. There's the part number, and it was, the receipt here says $10. So yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my little wire brush here and wire brush the float, the needle and jet for the center, and the bowl, and then the bottom of the carburetor itself. And the new kit comes with this part here is called the needle, the part that sticks up. So what you're going to, we're going to have to install a new one on this. So we're going to have to take the old one off. So just remember which way this clip faces, because if you get it the wrong way, the float won't go up and down the correct way. So on this, in my case, it looks like this. So yeah, just make sure, take lots of pictures, and make sure that you remember which way this goes on. So I'm just going to slide the old one off of here like this and set it over there. And I'm going to wire brush this, and also make sure that the float doesn't have any holes in it. So you can do that by sticking it in a bucket of water and watching for bubbles, or make sure it doesn't sink. So I'm working on the bowl right now, and so as you can see, it's a little bit stained green. So to me, that doesn't concern me as much as the little pieces in it. So try to get out the little flakes with a screwdriver, because the green stain, that doesn't matter, but the little pieces do, because if they get sucked up into the carburetor, they can clog it. So make sure if you have these little chunks like this or specks, grab a little screwdriver like this or whatever and just kind of scratch it off. This will make sure that there's no junk in the carburetor. So yeah. So now I'm going to move on to wire brushing the carburetor off. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the little bowl gasket here with my fingernail, because we're not going to need that anymore. So toss that off to the side. And I'm also going to remove this choke mechanism, because it just gets in the way. So it's just 2 Phillips screws here that you're going to have to take out. So the next thing I'm going to do is on the older Tecumsehs, there's actually a low speed adjustment screw here. So I'm going to take that out, because I want to clean this whole thing. So what I'm going to do first is turn it in and count the turns, because I want to know exactly how much to put it back to when I put it back in. So in our case, there's half, 1. Okay, so it's in 1 turn. So I'm going to take it all the way out, and then when we put this carburetor back together after we've cleaned it, we're going to make sure we turn this screw out in 1 turn exactly, or at least get it as close to what it was originally, so that we can have a good baseline when we're tuning it later in the video. And yeah, it's pretty dirty in there, so we'll definitely clean that out. So now I'm going to go with my little wire brush here along just the bottom here in this thing, and maybe here, and clean it up. And after we do this, we're going to blow out all the jets with my air compressor, and we're also going to spray it out with carb cleaner, and we're going to go through it with all the little jet holes with a torch tip cleaner. So I'll talk more about this later in the video. So the next thing we're going to do is clean out all the little jet holes with, this is called a torch tip cleaner, as I previously mentioned. So basically, there's a bunch of little, it looks like a pipe cleaner, but it's metal. Anyway, you're going to get one of these that fits in the hole. So first hole we're going to do is the emulsion tube down the center. So we'll get a bigger one here, maybe like this one, and we're going to stick it in the center, and then we're going to go up and down a bunch, and that will hopefully clean it out, clean it all out of there. And I'm going to do this for this one there. Oh, and make sure, a lot of people don't know this, there's a little vent hole for the bowl right there. That small hole that has to be cleaned out. So we'll definitely be blowing that one out with the air compressor, because if this is plugged, the carburetor, when the seat comes up, it's not going to work right. So make sure that right there is cleaned out really well. So basically, run this through the emulsion tube, which is the center hole. That's basically it on this one. On the carburetors that are non-adjustable, there's more orifices, or there's more holes to clean out. Basically, get one of these cleaners, run it down the center like this a bunch of times, clean it out, because there's a little bit of dirt on the end there, and you don't want that in your carburetor. So I'm basically going to go like this for like a long time through all the holes and clean it out. Now we're going to blow it out with the air compressor just to make sure that it's all clean. Alright, so make sure you have your safety glasses on when you do this. So take your air compressor like this and blow down all the holes to clean them all out. Get down the center here, open it up and get down there. Next, we're going to get in the inlet here. And so I don't know if you can see in there, but there's a small white O-ring. And if this thing blows out while you're using this, that's fine, because the carburetor kit I showed you comes with a new one we're going to be installing. So maybe just put your finger over this so it doesn't fly out all across the room. And there we go, it came out. And I don't know where it went, but it doesn't matter because we don't need it. So now I can basically keep blowing out all the holes. Like there's a primer one here. And there's this one too. And basically blow the holes out until it's clean. Okay, so before we put the carburetor back together, I'm gonna take this apart and clean it out with a rag, and then we're gonna put it back together and use the torch tip cleaner on this again. Okay, so for the little jet here, we're gonna get our torch tip cleaner and run it through the small holes, because I don't want any junk inside of them. So make sure this one's clean. Make sure the really tiny one up here is good. think it is. Yep. And that's it. And I'm also I might just use my wire brush here as well because the bristles are a lot smaller and easier to get in this tiny holes. So there we go. Now we're going to put it back together and install a new kit. Okay guys, so now it's time to reinstall the new carburetor kit. So the first thing I'm going to do is install the new seat valve. So as you can see on here, maybe, on one side there is a couple letters. Anyway, that faces down and the ridge part faces upwards. Actually, wait, no it doesn't. Let me, one sec. Okay guys, so I just double checked and it turns out the smooth side has to be facing up. So what we're going to do is, I don't have the proper installation tool. So what I'm going to do is hold it on my fingers here, smooth side up, drop it in the hole, and then I'm going to use a drill bit here that fits inside here, and I'm going to push this down evenly all the way down to the bottom. Might take a few tries, but you can do it. There we go. And obviously you're going to want to use the smooth side of the drill bit, not the sharp side. And there we go. New seat is installed. Now, so I took a look at the old needle, and I think it looks in pretty good shape. So we're just going to reinstall it how it was. So to do that, put it like this. Get the pin, line it up in the holes. So put the needle in the hole, and get this thing back on there. And wait a sec, I gotta push this in some more. There we go. Get this in here. Push this down. Get the pin in there. And you're just gonna want to line this up. Push that through. And now what you're gonna do is, I like to blow in here and lift this up to make sure it works. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to blow in this little inlet here and push this up at the same time to make sure it seals. So when it's down like this, air should go through. Boom. So there we go. It works perfectly. Now we're going to put a new bowl gasket and put the bowl back on the carburetor. Okay, so for the gasket, let me just tilt you guys down. For the gasket, here's the new one. It doesn't matter which way it goes on because it's all the same. So get it on the edge there. And so there's a little ridge right here. Make sure it's on the outside of that. So you want it to fill this gap right here. So push it with your finger like this. And the new one is a little bit tight, so you're going to have to stretch it out a little bit to get it on there. But it's easy enough. I almost have it. There we go. Now with the bowl, make sure this little indent goes over the pin there. So like this. There we go. Now we're gonna get the, where did I put it? One second. Now we're gonna get the bowl nut and put the new gasket on like this. And then hold the carburetor in our hands and screw this back on. And make sure that the bowl gasket goes all the way to the bottom, because if it doesn't, it can rip and then you're going to have to get a new one, which is a pain in the butt. So there we go. Now to screw this in all the way and tighten it up. And it uses a 7/16 wrench, as I mentioned when we were taking it apart. So now that your carburetor is reassembled, try blowing in here and tipping it over one more time just to make sure that the needle and seat are fully sealed. Okay, so this one, I just checked it, is perfect. Now we're going to go reinstall it back on the Snowblower. Ooh, and I almost forgot one more thing. You have to reinstall the choke actuator. So that just basically goes like this way. Let me get it lined up here. There we go. Goes like this, and you're gonna have to put the two screws in the front there and right there. So I'm gonna do that. Then we're gonna go and install it back on the Snowblower and start it up, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Okay guys, so the first step is going to be putting the carburetor back on the old linkage. So get the linkage lined up here like this. I just took it out by accident, and get it lined up in the correct throttle hole. So ours was the middle one, if you can remember. So there we go. Now we're going to reinsert the carburetor on the intake manifold, and the bolts on these tend to want to come out the back, so you might have to spin them with your fingers to line them back up and get them lined back up in the holes. Once you do that, you can get them on there and get the nuts, put the nuts back on. Like this. And you're going to want to do each a little bit at a time. You don't want to overdo one and warp the carburetor. So, yep. Now I'm going to tighten these both up, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Okay guys, so I'm tightening up. So as I was tightening up the nuts here, I noticed they kind of want to slip. So you can see the headlamp on the back. So if they're slipping like mine are, you can get a 3/8 and stick it on the back here to hold it in place, and then tighten it with the 7/16 on the front. Okay guys, while I was in here, I decided I might as well change the primer line out. So the size is the 1/8 inch hose. It's pretty standard. And the piece is about 1 foot long, so there you go. Alright guys, so I just hooked up the fuel line. Now what we're gonna do is put this cover back on, and then we're gonna see if this thing starts. So let me see if I can untangle this out of here. There we go, and it should just tip up here. There we go. There. So, and when you're tightening these covers, don't tighten the screws fully at once, because you're gonna want to have a chance to line them all up and get them all nice. Okay guys, it's time to see if this thing will start. I poured some gas in there, and I poured some fuel treatment in the gas as well. All right, let's see if this thing starts. So, throttle's like half-ish. Make sure my camera's going again, yeah. Choke. Few primes. More primer. Let me try something else. Okay guys, so I forgot to mention the key switch doesn't work, so I had to disconnect it. So now we should have spark. So the throttle's half, choke's still on, a couple primers. But no choke. Let me keep trying until I get it going. Okay, I just put a new spark plug in it, so let's see if that makes a difference. Where'd that wrench go? Alright, we gotta run it. Okay, so it isn't idle, so we're gonna have to mess that screw a little bit. But the full throttle is pretty good. And fun fact, it was blowing rust on my arm out of the exhaust. That's kind of funny. So now let me just mess with the idle screw, and then I'll show you guys it running on idle. All right, I got it to idle. Pretty sweet. All right, so I guess that's a pretty good wrap up on how to clean your Tecumseh carburetor on a snowblower. So if you like this video, make sure to like it, give it a thumbs up, and if you think I deserved it, hey, maybe even a subscribe, because, you know, that makes me more motivated to post videos like this. So anyway, see you guys next weekend. See ya.